Speaking of Indiana Jones, Jacob also said, speaking of Indiana Jones, apparently he has his own EU, but it's called The Expanded Adventures, and that still hasn't been decanonized for Indiana Jones by Disney. Me and you had this conversation
I love the
privately.
we talked young Indiana Jones a whole bunch because when Matthew was suffering through the Clone Wars, I had already done that, and I was suffering through young Indiana Jones, which 2/3 of that is garbage, but there's a third of it that's really fascinating, and it is bizarre. George wrote out a full Indiana Jones timeline from he's born in 1899 and to the 80s. He's like a really old man with an eye patch. It's wild. But there's a bunch of Indiana Jones novels that were released by Bantam that I've heard are pretty good. Although I think the one from Steve Perry is pretty bad. And then there's a bunch of young adult novels that I know nothing about. And they did some Marvel comics and some Dark Horse comics. And the Dark Horse comics, as I recall, were really good. But I read them as a kid.
Yeah.
They weren't ones I owned.
The quality autism, he's here, but he's late. Hey, it's okay.
It's okay.
No worries there.
Starting.
Uh-oh. What's this?
Oh, it's a tiny B word.
It is.
Showed up.
Are you still talking?
We're talking Indiana Jones now. Hey, guys, thanks for the emails, guys. Send emails.
I saw that. Let me talk to you about that. I actually thought about getting all of them, like the children's books, everything. It would cost around, estimated at the time, $400 to get everything, comic books and everything, the Dark Horse comic books and everything like that, the old Marvel comic books. Mm-hmm. It is all within canon, as I understand, and did have its own story group and was also approved by George. But it was so low key because it came out the same time as Timothy Zahn stuff, but it didn't sell as well. And they still produced some, but not as many because it just wasn't as popular. But it was all within canon. In fact, there was a rule in Indiana Jones that I can't remember. Marcus could never leave the museum because he never goes on an adventure until Last Crusade.
That's funny.
And that was one of their rules that they could not break. They couldn't bring Marcus out. He could be in the books, but he had to stay in the museum. He had to stay in the university. He couldn't go out because his first adventure in a long time was Last Crusade. And so it did have its own little rules and everything, which was really cool. And I thought about getting them. I read the first 2 novels. I thought they were okay, but it just wasn't pulling me in. I went through the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles too, and it could have been done a lot better. But
did you hear? Have you heard the rumors for season 3 of Young Indiana Jones?
No.
That Marion was supposed to be in there, and she was supposed to be like a teenager, and he was supposed to be like 20. That's kind of nasty. Not like an older teenager, like 14.
What? So they're going to go back in time? Because 2 had him in his World War I days, right?
Well, no, because she's that much younger than him in George's time. Because George wrote out a whole timeline.
Wow.
And it was like, why does it have to be so, she has to be a joke number that long ago? Why couldn't it be fairly recently? It didn't come off that way. And it's like, really? That's weird.
Now, I did not know that Germany had 8 official Indiana Jones novels written in German only by Wolfgang Holbein. Thank you, quality, for that. I never even knew about that, but because I didn't look those up. Some of the hardest ones to find are the young adult books. Young Indiana Jones young adult books are harder, but you can find them all if you search really hard. There's fan club books too. I mean, there's a few things. The comic books were all collected in omnibuses, which when I last checked were pretty cheap.
Expensive.
Oh, really? They're expensive now?
I was trying to collect those right before the fire, and it was really slow process.
Well, I could have pulled the trigger and got it all, but I decided after I read the first 2 novels, I said, And Jacob, the plan was eventually to go through and read all the Indiana Jones stuff and review it all, but it's okay. It just, in the first, Timothy Zahn's first 3 novels hit you, man. You're like, I'm in. Well, you think at least the first or second novel they ever put out would hit you. and they just never had a hit. Now I heard the one about Noah's Ark or something. Noah's Ark was really good.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was called. I heard that one is the best one. It seems like anytime they have a biblical MacGuffin, it's going to be a hit, right? Ark of the Covenant, Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Then you have glowing rocks for Temple of Doom and a crystal skull, which really sucked.
Temple of
Scientology episode.
I'm going to argue that Temple of Doom is like a good film.
I love Temple of Doom. I'm just saying it pales in comparison to Raiders and Last Crusade. But I love Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom is actually my favorite.
I never thought it's your favorite.
Mm-hmm. Which it's the one I've seen more often too. I need to revisit the others.
We weren't allowed to watch it for the longest, obviously.
I wasn't allowed to watch it either.
But that's what made it more special when we finally got to, because my grandmother didn't know that Burger King, if you remember, was selling them for $5 on VHS back in the day.
Really?
My grandmother bought them all, and when we saw Temple of Doom, we're like, oh wow! And that's all we watched at my grandmother's was Temple of Doom over and over and over, because we never got to see it. So it was special. Short Round is hilarious. He's great in it. There's a lot of great stuff. It's a classic scene. Him on the bridge with the sword. It's classic. It's classic
too.
It's got the opening fight with a dance number. I mean, what more could you want?
What movie do you have someone get impaled with a flaming shish kebab?
I'm telling you, it's great.
My favorite things I've ever seen in a movie.
Embarrassingly enough, I was in my late 20s before I realized the club's name was called Obi-Wan. I never caught that.
I never noticed.
Okay, yeah, no one catches that. Oh, by the way, Chris said it'll be a cold day on Tatooine before he appears on your channel, Matthew.
Chris, you have no valid points because you said Shatterpoint's good.
He had the invite, and he said no. He says, I have better things to do than go to your...
There it is. Quality got it. The Genesis Deluge. That's what it is.
Okay.
And I hear that one is the best one. Now, I didn't get to that one because that's like the third or fourth book in the series. And I probably should have gone to that one, and maybe it would have convinced me to buy the rest. But I got the first two and then stopped. But also within the canon, if you're talking about books that fit within the canon, because Indiana Jones does. It does. And then, like I said, I just recently found out that Highlander novels also fit within the canon. This is the first. Well, I'm missing 3 right now. They're still coming in. They'll be in next week. So I'm super excited to start reading them. I don't think there's an order to these, but if they're
gotta verify.
I think they take place between seasons 1 and 2.
Well, technically they take place in the past. I think all of them, because they're always flashbacks. But yes, it's probably during the seasons. But I'm going to read them in publication order and then see if there's a chronological order. There may be one online. But what's interesting. And I didn't know about Smallville. See, the thing is, though, Chris, Smallville sucks.
Yes, I'll second.
I watched every episode, and I liked Lex Luthor. And when he was dead, it was not worth it. I liked Jonathan Kent too. I thought Jonathan Kent was solid, but then they killed him off. But interesting, and I want to know who else. This girl, Jennifer Robinson. Anyone know her name? Does this name sound familiar? Star Wars fans, think deep. She wrote in the Tales books.
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
So I'm wondering, and I don't recognize any of these other names, but I recognized her name. She wrote this novel, and if I remember right, Kevin J. Anderson, who edited all of them, he brought people. I know a lot of them from Star Trek books. I don't think I mentioned this in my reviews, but a lot of these were Star Trek writers that he wanted to give a shot and get them into Star Wars. Kevin J. Anderson was all for giving all these other authors a chance and trying to get them contracts with Bantam at the time to write Star Wars books, which sadly is how Vonda M. McIntyre probably got her start in there. But that is definitely how A.C. Crispin, who was a Star Trek writer, got her start. It's all because of Kevin J. Anderson. He hooked her up.
TheGeeksAttic. That is the other person who wrote an Alien movie novelization. She wrote Alien Resurrections movie novelization, whereas Alan Dean Foster wrote all the other ones, except for Prometheus. Prometheus does not have a movie novelization. Sorry to like back.
Strange.
Okay, thanks for interrupting me to go back to your topic.
But the Indiana Jones novels, I actually found them at the used bookstore one time. They had all of them, and I even, and when I did find them, I sent Jeremy the picture. I was like, "Look at these."
Oh, I was screaming on the inside.
And he's like, "Get them!" And I was like, already got home, and I was like, "Yeah, I passed."
Yeah, I just like if I had them all again, and I could pull the trigger, I might have done it back in the day. Now, no. But quality. Did you read the Genesis Deluge, and is it good? 'Cause I do hear that's the best one. And then there was a newer one that came out, the Cannibal. That was the Steve Perry one. The what was it called?
I heard that was bad.
You heard it was bad? Okay.
Yeah.
That was the Dead, something of the Dead or something like that. I can't remember what it was called.
It's got the lowest Amazon rating.
Okay. Well, I heard Genesis Deluge is the best, and I should have read that one.